Hey, how are you today?
Actually, today is nice.
Why?
So I got to spend a lot of times with the kids. We did a lot of outside time. We played. Well, they rode their bikes, and you know, so today's kind of like a family day.
Yeah,
So we're talking about family today.
yeah. How do you feel about that topic?
Um, it's a mixed topic. Some people don't have strong family, and other people do.
Yeah, I feel that, and I think when you talk about family, you also need to talk about friends. And also, all families are different, right? Some people have children, some people don't. Some people are working families, some people are like us and stay at home families. So I think family can mean a lot of different things. Um, And I also do think that some people don't want to talk about family. So I think a lot of the questions we're going to model today are going to be maybe more neutral or more.
Well, there's also families that are blended. Our family is sort of blended, right? But not in the traditional sense, right?
Because your kids were already grown when we married.
Well, that's a different side of it. So our family is internationally blended.
Yeah.
So because you're from South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
I'm from the United States, and then we met in
Thailand. Yeah.
And then our children were born in Thailand, so they kind of have that Asian, African, American thing.
And we married in Australia with my Australian family. So yeah, we really are a blended international family.
So, but beyond the blended family, which is traditionally like, okay, so yes, I was married before, and I had children with my previous marriage, but now we're married and we have our own children. Yeah, my other children are older, and they don't live with me. They, they're on their own for the most part, and so that part of blending doesn't really fit our family, the family we have now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so talking about family, I think we traditionally think is about support. So how do families support each other? What are some ways that they can do that?
Well, there's different support that people need. Like we support each other with our work. We also support each other, emotionally and physically. Mm-hmm. But also,
like if someone is ill, we would take care of one another.
Yeah, we definitely.
And childcare as well is another big thing where we support each other, or where families can support each other, right? If you need help with childcare.
Yeah, if there's grandma, grandpa, they can take the kids for a couple hours so that we can have a date night.
A date night. That would be nice.
Go out to dinner. Maybe see a live show. I prefer that over a movie theater, I guess. Okay. But other support is like if somebody's ill, or if they get ill enough that you lose them,
then you have that moral support.
Then you have the support of family to help you.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah, grieve or get through that process. Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Also, school. So kids go to school. Sometimes parents go to school.
So I've been studying this year, right? And you've been supporting me a lot in that. So it's taken quite a lot of our family time. I've had to step away for work to go and study and try to find quiet moments with our little kids. But you've been really supportive of that. And also we work from home. So a lot of the time you're teaching or I'm teaching or we're working on a project independently. And the other one needs to give us the space to pursue our interests. Mm-hmm. Watch the children maintain the house while we explore what we need to do, be it study or work. Right?
Well, so also the age of the children kind of make a big difference, right?
Yeah.
Our children are a little bit younger. We have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And so they need more of our attention.
Someone must be with them all the time.
Well, where if we have older children, like with teenagers, then they can kind of do their own thing. You still kind of have to watch out for what they're doing.
Yeah.
And, and still support them in their needs when they're older. But, our children right now are younger.
So that's a factor, is the stages of life and the stages of family. So we're in the stage of family where we have young children. We would maybe call us a young family, as much as you're older than me. We're a young family because we have young children. But that's also a factor when you talk about family, independent families. My parents at the moment are like empty nesters. All of my siblings have moved out, right? So they're in a new phase in their life.
Right, they're grandparents now, and so that's a new phase that they have to deal with. And, when your kids are now grown and maybe they're going to university, then that's a different...
And you have to renegotiate those relationships and how do we be... so family changes over time, right? The family dynamic changes over time.
That's right.
That would be the word. All right. Yeah. Do you agree with the saying that children should be seen and not heard? Why do you agree or disagree with that?
Well, growing up,
we were like this growing up. Children should be seen and not heard.
Not necessarily in my family. My family was pretty close, and we did a lot of things. We did family things. We didn't take airplane rides on vacation. We usually did a car trip. We did road trips.
Right.
Also, my dad, he was a plumber, and he used to take me or my brother, not both of us at the same time, sometimes, but we would go to work with him. Whether it was at a big construction job or if it was just a home visit where he was fixing a kitchen sink or something. And he taught us how to hand him tools, and so we were really close, and our opinion kind of mattered.
Right, that makes sense.
So obviously, we were trying to be taught work ethic at the same time. So, if you want your children to succeed, then you have to pass things on.
And you have to actually converse with them to do that. So,
yeah.
So for me, I grew up in being South African, I think culturally we often find that we have differences, and many South African families are fairly conservative or traditional. And I think a lot of the time my family had that mindset that children should, my grandmother used to say, you shouldn't sit here and count adults' teeth, right? So children should be seen and not heard. My grandparents would come over, I would maybe serve tea or something, especially my great-grandmother would serve some tea and say hello, and then the adults would talk and we would go play. I wouldn't say that my parents didn't engage with me, because like you, we also went camping and we did things a lot together. But I think it was more the adults did something and the children did other things. It was less of that engaging kind of mindset. I think it's just a cultural difference. I don't think it's really a comment on anything else. But cultures make families different as well. Right?
Yeah. Well, me and my brother, we were very involved with the Boy Scouts, and my dad, he was like a Cub Master. He re-sparked, I guess, the Cub Scouts and stuff.
Cool.
When we were kids. It was an active organization, but then he got really involved and got a lot of boys involved, our friends in our area, yeah. And so then we built up the Boy Scouts in our area. And
That's
then
very cool.
We just moved on from there. It was really nice. So.
That's cool. Do you want to try a question?
Well, what problems do you think parents have to solve as their children grow up?
Okay, well, we were talking about that, right? The stages of life and the stages of family. And I think when we have a new baby for the very first time, there's lots of problems we have to solve we've never encountered before. And nowadays, maybe Google is your best friend. And then as they get older, you think about education, or you think about development, and you have to solve those kinds of problems. What does your child need at this age? And then probably once they start having friends and a social life, you can assist them in figuring out and navigating friendships and what being social looks like, because there's always going to be problems. If your children go to school, then you would have to solve some of those interactions and problems and things they may encounter in their school life. And then maybe as teenagers, hopefully they open up to you, and maybe they date, or maybe they explore that and you can be there for them. And then as they become adults, they're going to face lots of hurdles that I think as young adults, studying and entering the working world and figuring out the course of their life. I think as they age, we start to be more guidance or mentors and less hands-on. You can only help your children so much, I suppose.
Are there some things that maybe you need to let your children fail at?
Yeah.
I mean, because problems aren't always, something that you can fix for them. Sometimes they have to do it.
Yeah, I think so. I think failure is important, and I think finding something that's impossible is important, because those evoke strong feelings, right? Those moments. And I mean, you look at our little kids, sometimes they want something that's completely impossible or I'm not able to do. Oh, I'd like a piece of chocolate. Well, it's 9 o'clock at night and there's no chocolate in the house and the shops are closed, right? Like, it's just not possible. And
yeah,
so
it's just not going to happen.
Then we have some really big feelings that we have to discuss, but this is not a problem I can solve for you at this moment in time. Yeah. And how do we deal with that disappointment? I think it's important. It builds grit, right? Lots of very famous, wealthy, successful people say that the main thing you should develop in your children is resilience or grit. These are really important skills.
Well, being able to overcome things that
adversary
are but overcoming the result of, hey, this is just not a possibility, right? So some things are not possible, and we can be upset about it. That's fine, but at some point we have to calm down and move on.
And also we can support you in your feelings, but we can't always fix the problem.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So it's not that we're not there for you as parents, but we can't fix it. We can only be here to love you through it, maybe. Yeah?
Yeah, and just that goes back to the support. We're trying to support you emotionally and help you navigate that.
Yeah, that's fair.
As it is.
Let's see what other questions we have here. Some more down the bottom. What do you think of people who marry and decide not to have children?
Well, there's a lot of factors that go into deciding to have children. Some people, it's not planned, right? Sure. And other people, they plan everything down to the T, right? So that's one of our plan it down to the T. It's an idiom. So we need to know, everything that's going to happen before we get involved. But, having children there's a lot of decisions. You have a financial decision. There's an emotional decision there,
Your personal capacity to do it.
Yeah, do you, and it probably stems from your past, like, did you like the way you grew up with your parents and your family?
Do you think you're going to be a good parent? Do you think you can provide a good support structure? Do you have everything you need? And some people prioritize work, or they need to, right? I think in our modern world, most people both have to work just to make ends meet. That's another idiom, make ends meet, yeah? Mm-hmm. And there's just no room in the budget for children. Because when you have kids, like me, we had kids, and I never really went back to a full-time job because after I had my children, decided I needed to stay home with them. And I still work now, but I don't go to a traditional 9 to 5 because it's actually just very difficult with small kids to put them in school and do all those things.
And now schools really cost money.
Yeah.
If you know, it used to be that okay, the public school, you send your kid there, they teach them, they send them home, and you know, if there was a potluck at the end of the month that for the parent teacher conference or something, then okay, then you have to put forward a plate of food, a dish of food. But nowadays, like I remember when I started going to high school, like it was pay to play. So the pay to play system was like if you wanted to do a sport or an extracurricular activity, then you would have to pay.
Yeah, so I was speaking to someone the other day and I was saying, so we haven't lived in South Africa for very long. I lived out of the country for a long time. So I'm not really up to date with things, yeah. And when I was in school, it was free. You did sport. The sport was included as part of the school and part of the extracurriculars. And both my primary school and my high school offered multiple extracurriculars that you could choose from, and they were free. Maybe you needed kits or gear, but that would be a little bit extra and it's not a big deal. But now, almost all of the extracurriculars you must pay for. They're all done through private external clubs that come to the school and host the extracurriculars. So it's not that you can actually send your child to school for free, even to a government school. And also at a young age, we have lots of friends who send their young children to school so they can go to work, and it's not cheap. You know, the school fees, the clothing, the snacks, all the things you must send with them, all the extracurriculars, all the events. You know, it's Halloween, it's Valentine's Day, it's all these things, and you must send extra stuff with. It works out expensive, and people can't afford it. And having 2 jobs and taking sick leave, and it's just not viable in our present economic world.
Well, and the schooling is very competitive. So, like, your children are now competing for having the best education so that they can get the better job once they move out of school. And it's also competing to get to that university to study that topic, that, the specific topic that you want to do. I see this a lot with students that I teach from Korea. They're going to the regular public school, then they go to an academy, and they're doing 2 or 3 academies after school, and then on top of that, then I see them late at night with me, like we're talking it's 11 o'clock at night their time, and they're still awake learning, and they're doing English classes with me.
It's all the same all over Asia, right? And like you say, the competition starts from preschool, from kindergarten. Are you in the right school? Are you in the right kindergarten? Yeah. Will you get into the right primary school? Okay, but you and I can talk schooling all day long. We have a lot of opinions on this specific topic. But today we're supposed to be talking about family, right?
Okay, well, we're talking about the family, and if you decide to have children, then it should be your decision and your partner's decision.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be anyone else's. I believe that to be true, because you have to make the right decision for you.
So I would like to add one more thing before we ask another question. So we already said the culture is a factor, right? And I think in traditional societies that are still more conservative or more traditional, there's a lot of pressure on people to marry and then to have children, right? There's a lot of that outside pressure from older family to do that, regardless of your economics. This is expected, right? It's an expectation. And I don't want to dismiss that, right? I don't want to dismiss the importance of people have their own situations. And it's not as we live in the West, where people are mostly open-minded, and where it is an option for people to have their own opinions. But it isn't an option in every culture. And so that is fair.
That's right. That is another one of our questions, is about Western families and Eastern families. So in the West, we say Europe, North America, so the United States, Canada, and really Australia is part of that, even though they're kind of Eastern.
Mm.
But the the Eastern families is Asia, like China, Japan, Korea,
Thailand, where we were
Thailand,
living before, all those
right.
Asian, Southeast Asian countries.
They the family bonds seem to be a little bit stronger for the most part there.
Yeah.
And also then the expectations are there from very early on.
I agree with that, and I think also maybe the family dynamics are different. So I think in the West, families have tended to move apart. So as we've sort of pursued interests, we've traveled, we've done these things, it's more common to just be a husband and a wife and their children, not necessarily attached to a larger family group, right? Mm. Which makes things quite difficult when you have kids. And in many parts of Asia, it's not like that. People still live together with their extended families, and in parts of Africa as well. But I do see it changing. Like I see in China a lot of people moving to big cities with globalization and pursuing work in the big cities away from their hometowns. And it's changing to people being more alone, more independent. But what about culture? We spoke about cultural expectations. What are some other things that families maybe do or expect in the West and the East that might be different?
Well, I think that we've moved away from being farming culture. So, in the West, I know, like, the pioneer days, you could say, in North America, whether it be Canada or the United States, that there was a big farming culture. And so then families did stay together. But now that we've moved into more industrialization and more, economic hubs like commerce and big business and stuff like that, we move into these cities and we separate from our families. So that cultural change is, happened over time.
And it's happening everywhere, yeah. We say it's happened in the West because it happened a long time ago, maybe. But I think it's really starting to happen more and more in the East and in Eastern countries where people are doing that. So I don't think there's an awful lot of differences. Maybe the expectations, like we say, or the family bonds are still closer there. But yeah, I think also just the way we do things is different, right? Family dinners, those kinds of things.
Okay. I think that holidays are a big thing. Yeah. That's cultural, right?
Across the world. Doesn't matter what holiday it is.
No, holidays. Different. Like I was, I bring up Korea. I lived there for a year. But also I have students there, right? So the families there, I asked my students, I get questions about holidays and, what's the most important holiday. So, like in China, Spring Festival or Chinese New Year's, most people know it, is one of their big family festivals. Here coming up, actually, in the next month, they're going to have the Mooncake Festival, which everybody else knows is the Mid-Autumn Festival. Or
talking about festivals, right? Yeah. We have Christmas, which is a big one, but we also have Thanksgiving, right? So, talking about Thanksgiving, do you think that bonds with your friends or bonds with your family are more important?
Well, it depends on where you are. Like, we lived overseas, and so making bonds with friends was very important. So, there were other Americans, the U.S. people would be Americans. As far as Canadians, Canada, they also celebrate Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we did that. We did Canadian Thanksgiving 1 year in Samui. And also here in South Africa, we've been doing Friendsgiving. Right?
Well, so with your friends, then you can still celebrate the holidays that you traditionally would do with your family, and then you just invite friends to do it.
So it depends on your circumstance, I think, whether you have close family bonds or close friendship bonds, and it doesn't really need to matter. Friends can be as good as family. You know, you can have really good friends who can be really supportive, and you can have really good family and not need friends.
Well, I've found that now that we're in South Africa, that it seems like friends and family, there's kind of like a meld of people. So our children call your best friend an aunt, right? So that's pretty common. It's a cultural thing.
Yes, it is a cultural thing. So in South Africa, it's respectful to call someone older than you. In Afrikaans, we say oom or tannie, which means aunt and uncle, right? And so it's very common as a sign of respect to call someone by a familial name, right? Even in the Zulu culture, they might say gogo, which means grandma, to someone who's older than them, even if she isn't your grandma. And I think this happens in other cultures as well. It's not just South African culture. We use family terms to show respect.
Right. Okay.
Let's do two more. The last one, this one. Is it better for mothers to stay at home with kids or go to work to earn more money for the family? I promise it's not a trap. What's the answer?
Well, I think it depends on the family situation. Really. Like we're a blended family, right? So a single mother has to go to work. Unless they're independently wealthy, it's, that's the thing they have to do, or they have parents who are willing to, pay the way.
So it's based on your circumstances.
Yeah, I believe so. But it can also be, there's families where there's a stay-at-home dad.
It's true.
And the mom goes to work.
So this is very common in Thailand. There's many blended families where the mother might be Thai and the father might be foreign, and he may be older, right? And he's there on his retirement. He remarries, and she goes to work at a normal job, and he does all the school stuff and the kids stuff and the running of the life stuff because he's there and semi-retired, So
it can happen.
It is common, and we would like that eventually. Right now, I am more with the kids, I think, and you're working more, but we're both home with our children.
Yeah, but it happens all over the world in all cultures, I think, that a mother will go to work and the father will stay home. Or they both work and they have a nanny. Or they both work because their kids are in public school or private school.
Yeah.
So, but I think that it is important for children to have a strong bond with their mother.
Yeah, I think so too.
That is an important thing that needs to happen. Obviously, up to the situation, like we said,
so I think,
of every family.
We haven't spoken very personally, but on a personal level, I think we decided very early on that, especially in the early years, we wanted to focus on being present with our children and being on top of their development, right? I read a lot of works by Maria Montessori, and she talks about the first 3 years and 6 years of life and how important they are. And so I think if at minimum you can do that, our personal opinion is that is probably best, if you can be with your children as much as possible in the first 6 years of life, when they're really developing the majority of their character, their personality, their intellect. So after that, things get a bit more flexible.
Yeah, I think so. The family needs to be one. So we're both teachers, and so that helps us to recognize things, probably sooner than maybe a non-teacher would.
It's true.
But there are parents who are probably smarter than we are.
I would definitely say we're not the perfect parents. But yes, I think it's really up to you. And your personal preference. Our personal preference is to stay home with our children and to work from home because we enjoy doing it, and it's been really, really amazing to do that.
Well, I mean, just today I got to spend most of my day with the kids, either inside or outside playing. And to be honest, I've been up since 4 a.m.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And we read my 2-year-old wanted to read every space book we owned. So that's what we did. And,
at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Cup of coffee and some books.
Sounds like a good morning. And then our 4-year-old got up and really wanted to learn. So we did science and I did homeschooling with her while you played outside with our 2-year-old. And so that's our next question, and I think we've answered it. What does it mean to be a happy family? Or what is the most important thing to make a happy family, right? And so it's relative, but for us this is it, right? Family time, quality time, balance.
I think the most happiest families will spend time together.
Right.
That's the main thing. It's not about the money. It's not about the job or the school, or it's about quality time together.
I mean, the other things play a factor, but the time is the main thing. I agree. You know, we're always happiest when we're spending time together as a family. That's all. I think we're not going to do any more. There were a couple more questions about families, but I think we've fairly well covered the topic. Is there anything else you want to say before we close?
No, I think that, family is important. So,
we should end on that note.
Yeah.
This was fun. See you soon.